from the University of Kansas Health System.
I am amazed. The team here is great.
I came on a Tuesday, and then by Saturday I had a heart in me.
I have never seen a group of people work together so good as this team of heart specialists. I mean, it's just unreal.
Stand by to set up show.
And the Dolph C. Simons Jr. Family Broadcast Studio.
Roll it.
Always makes you feel like you're the most important patient on the planet.
I felt heard, and that was really big.
This is All Things Heart.
Good morning. It's Thursday, March 31st. I'm Alexis Del Cid. Welcome to All Things Heart. Here's what we have for you today. You're going to meet Garen. Garen is a guy who ignored the dangerous warning signs of heart trouble. He didn't know those were the signs. We're going to show you the unique way doctors kept his heart pumping till he could get a new one. And taste the rainbow. We're not talking about Skittles. What to remember the next time you make your dinner plate. Also, thank a doctor. Our doctors do so much to keep our communities and us safe and healthy. So we're sharing some of the messages to our doctors that you sent to honor them on National Doctors Day. And as always, if you have a question or a comment, you can share those on our Facebook, YouTube, or email us at allthingsheart@kumc.edu. And happy National Doctors Day. It was yesterday, so a belated happy Doctors Day to you, all our healthcare professionals out there. All right, you're about to meet a man who's the first to admit he missed all the signs of heart trouble. Even when his smartwatch alerted him that something was wrong with his heart, he says he was in such denial, he took his watch off, thinking it was broken. When he finally made the doctor's appointment, he said it was because he thought he had an ulcer. Turns out he was incredibly close to dying. At 40 years old, Garen Armstrong thought he was the picture of health. The busy father of 3 young kids regularly worked out. He spent his work days climbing rooftops and running his successful roofing business. So when he started getting stomach aches that wouldn't go away, well, he did what many of us would do. He pushed through it. When his smartwatch alerted him that his heartbeat was spiking, though, he took the watch off, thinking it was broken.
I was in denial.
In all fairness, nobody around him saw it coming.
I knew something was wrong, but of course I would never have guessed it was his heart.
I was really just flabbergasted. I don't know how, I was really surprised.
Fast forward a few weeks later, Garen says his stomach was bloated. He had lost his appetite altogether, and he felt his energy evaporating.
It was hard to breathe. It was, hard to have your strength. You're weak as a kitten.
It was time to see a doctor.
First thing they said, you have heart failure. I go, no, I'm here for my stomach. It's not my heart. And they go, well, you got only 10% of your heart functioning.
Garen needed immediate open heart surgery, during which doctors would implant something called a left ventricular assist device, commonly called an LVAD. An LVAD would help Garen's heart pump and keep Garen alive until he got a heart transplant.
It's very scary. It's very scary. You got to just have faith and trust, that everything is going to be okay.
Before surgery, he tried to find the words to describe to us what he was feeling.
I'm just getting ready to go into surgery, so my nerves and feelings are all over the place right now. I'm thinking about my family and kids and just getting through this.
As he's wheeled into the surgery room, he hugs his mom and his sister, says his goodbyes, and gives a thumbs up to us. The suspense. This morning, we want to welcome a much healthier Garen Armstrong to our show. He joins us virtually. It is so good to see you now. You look amazing. And then sitting right beside me is the cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Travis Abick. You're the one who saved Garen's life. He says you saved his life 3 times. We'll get to that in a minute.
All right.
But first, I want to ask Garen, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling phenomenal. It's amazing how much strength and energy that I have. I feel like I just want to tackle the world right now. It's just coming from where I came from and waiting on the heart transplant for close to 3 years, and through the journey and the waiting and the surgeries, it's truly a miracle, and I'm so grateful for KU and Dr. Abick, for sure.
We do want to give a quick note. The video that we're showing our viewers of Garen, you and Dr. Abick, was pre-pandemic, so it was a different time, which is why Garen wasn't wearing a mask when we interviewed him, because this was years ago. How long did you live with your LVAD until you finally got the transplant?
Just shy of 3 years. So it was 2 years, 10 months, something like that.
So it was 2018 when you went in for the LVAD?
Yeah.
And 2020 when Garen got his heart transplant. Before we get to the transplant part, Dr. Abig, are LVADs common? How many LVADs do you put into people a year?
Yeah, so they've become more common over time. In the U.S., we're currently sitting at about somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 LVADs per year as a country. Here at KU, we're in the range of 40 to 60, which would put us at one of the higher volume implanting centers in the country.
When it comes to how the LVAD works, I've talked to you ahead of this story that we're doing. There's a magnet in there, right?
Yes.
Can you explain how that works to the layperson, which would be
Sure.
a lot of us?
Sure. So the pump body itself has an electromagnet within it and a little rotor. And when we power it, the rotor levitates, and essentially electromagnets make it spin around, and that's what pumps the blood. So there are no parts that touch, there are no parts to wear out per se, and that's what makes it incredibly durable for the long term.
The other part, is that like a control mechanism that hooks on your belt, or is that in you too? Is it all in you?
So to date, we don't have it totally internalized. So we do, I tell the patients, we sprout a cord at the end of the day, and that goes to the controller, which we can change things like the speed
Where do you put the controller, though?
And
you hook it
people
to?
come up with all kinds of different ways to wear it. I'm sure Garen has unique ways that he dealt with it, but you can hook it on your belt. Some people have a fanny pack. Some people have vests or custom clothes that they even get to carry that, and as well as the batteries around with. But most of the time, if you walk past a person and didn't know that they had it, you wouldn't be any the wiser for it.
Well, Garen, you own a roofing company, and you went right back to working on rooftops and doing things and golfing. So where did you put that thing?
So I came up with the way I use these Under Armour football girdle pants, and they're like elastic pants that go underneath your pants, your jeans, and I was able to turn them inside out to keep the batteries even closer to me, and then I would tuck the wires in, and that's how I'd wear them. So a lot of the times, I mean, you couldn't tell that I was wearing the batteries. I looked a little hippie, but other than that, you couldn't tell I was wearing it except for the monitor on the side.
When you talk about your story, you use the word miracle quite a bit. So why do you describe your transplant story as nothing short of a miracle?
In all accounts, I'm surprised I'm still here, and it's a miracle. I mean, one was the fact that, I was 40 years old, healthy as an ox, and next thing you know, I just get this cardiomyopathy that goes to my heart. Within 45 days, I was about died. And then I had that experience where the pump got ripped out of my heart because I was doing too much. And then from then that got infected, and then to the fact that when they did the transplant, how fast, they had to clean me out so much and gave Dr. Abig a run for his money, and he did miracles on me there. And my white blood cell counts started dropping, right? And then in a week, so it was so bad in there, and they had me in and out in a week. It was a miracle. It was a time during COVID, and there was a time when the ICU was so full and packed, and so much, just a lot of bad things going on. And then I had a very successful transplant. I needed it. The doctors needed it. It was almost a shot in the arm for everybody, and it just felt good, when I walked out of there. And it just a major victory. It was amazing.
There's so much to unpack with what you just said. There's a lot to unpack there, because you also talked about ripping your LVAD out, which sounds horrific. I want to direct the next question to Dr. Abig. So Garen was a little bit too active when he first got out of there with his LVAD. I mean, that's the reason it ripped out, right?
Yeah, he's an active guy for sure. And so, and I'll just clarify one. It didn't pop out of his heart. So the way it sits in our body, it kind of moved around a little bit and created a space there and everything. So it wasn't like pump was out of his heart and he had a big hole in it that was leaking. Yeah, it wasn't anything like that. But it was enough to cause him discomfort, and Ultimately had a little bit of an infection that we had to deal with and things like this. Problems that are not uncommon with our LVAD patients.
That would be, so the first time you saved his life was putting in the LVAD. Second time you saved his life, according to Garen, was when you fixed the LVAD because what did you do to have it pop out? Not pop out, what's the right word? I'm saying it sounds
just
gruesome.
Shifted a little bit, let's say.
To have it shift a little bit. What were you doing, Garen?
I went golfing. I haven't got.
Okay.
I went golfing.
It's a heck of a swing.
Probably got a little aggressive on the swing, is what
Okay.
I'm thinking happened. And I played the best game ever, but that was the last game I played for a while.
Did you feel it in the moment? Like
No, I didn't.
You know you'd done something?
Later that night, the next day, yeah, and it was just I started having a hard time breathing, and next thing you know, it was my pleural sac was filling up with blood. It was pushing my lung up.
Good grief.
And they're telling me to go to the doctor, and I'm like, again. So
Again.
I went back again, and thank goodness.
You're the king of kind of kicking the can down the road because you've told us, you've described yourself as being in denial, which is where I want to go with this because you talk about the Apple Watch. So you were wearing an Apple Watch. It was telling you something was wrong. This was before the LVAD. You thought there was something wrong with the watch, and you took it off.
That's true. That's true.
What was the watch?
Apple, Apple just so the watch. It was keeping track of everything, my heartbeat and all that. It was spiking up. I'm like, this is weird. This doesn't make sense. It's like the first version I watch. There must be something wrong with it. So I took it off and set it aside. And sure enough, I mean, that turns out why I was feeling so bad. 'Cause I was feeling this bloat in my gut, and that's what I thought was, an ulcer or something. I didn't know what it was. But they said that's where you're holding water. I didn't hold it in my legs like a lot of people. So that's where it was.
Well, Dr. Abicht, if Garen hadn't come to you sooner, when he came to you, he says his heart was at 10%. Only 10% of his heart was working. How much longer did he have to live if he had waited any longer?
He was pretty sick when he came to us, so if he would have kept ignoring things, I mean, it could be days or weeks that he could have potentially succumbed to unfortunately heart failure.
I can't even think about what Garen's mom was thinking. You could just feel her anguish when we interviewed you before your procedure. She'd been begging you to go to the doctor. Now, you did, you got your LVAD, then you got your LVAD fixed, and then you got your new heart. And then you had a pretty amazing comeback, getting a huge honor in the industry in which you work, the roofing industry. Truly, you were voted the comeback kid. Tell us about that.
So yeah, the industry, in the roofing space, they get together, once a year. They have multiple events, and this is the largest event there is. And they have these voting for. I got to speak there about my life and to come back the story of how he's able to grow through adversity, through heart failure, and how we were able to do that, and share my story to 7,000 people to help impact their lives, and it was very humbling story. I mean, you think a lot of ego comes into that to grow, because I was also nominated as the fastest growth contractor, which I think that this played a part in being the fastest growth contractor, because I was able to. I'm in the hospital all the time, so I was able to start delegating people and managing, the management team, and so built it to where they didn't even need me anymore. So this shares the story to everybody about the heart transplant. But you voted the comeback kid, being able to, on death's, knocking on death's door. At the end of the day, I was waiting in ICU, waiting for that transplant. That's how bad it was. And it was during COVID, and you can see in the pictures, the family couldn't even come in. They're just kind of waving at me with masks on. And so super emotional. And I think that when you go through this experience, it helps you really prioritize what is life and what are you going to do and leave behind, because really during that time I'm planning for death, and so it's a scary time. But it was voted the comeback kid award in the industry, being able to overcome adversity and still be able to grow where it was, and so I'm just so grateful and thankful.
And speaking of what's important, we're also showing pictures of your family waiting outside the room before you had your surgery, and just everyone just rallied around you. We're getting so many community questions about the journey that you took and the life-saving surgery that Dr. Abik performed. So I want to get to our community questions. We know a lot of you have them, so keep them coming to us on Facebook, and you can also email them to us. Anne would like to know, Dr. Abik, what is a cardiothoracic surgeon, and is it the same as a heart surgeon? It's a good question.
Yep, so we got all kinds of names for things. It's one and the same. We do training in both thoracic and cardiac surgery while we're going through fellowship, and then at the end, a lot of us end up subspecializing in either one or the other. I tend to do all heart surgery. Some people do all thoracic surgery, but by and large, we kind of just combine them into one name.
That was just what you were drawn to.
Yep.
Cardiothoracic. Denise has a question for Garen. Can you ask Garen what it felt like to have the LVAD inside him?
So at first, when it got put in, it was weird. You hear a hum noise, you have and so you hear this humming noise, and you don't have a heartbeat, no pulse, no heartbeat, and then you just have a hum. It's like a hum, and you can hear that in your ears. And then other than a little rib rub, which you don't feel that, you just felt that at first. Then after a while, that went away, and you don't really feel it. It didn't really feel it after that. It was just getting used to not having a heartbeat and a pulse.
Weird. So you don't have a pulse, Dr. Abik, when you have an LVAD?
Each patient's a little different. So your heart still is sitting there doing its job, but the pump is continuously flowing. And so if patients' hearts are on the sicker end, a lot of times they don't have a pulse because the pump is doing all the work for them.
So Garen would not have felt a pulse if he put his 2 fingers up to his neck.
Correct. A lot of times we don't.
Weird.
Yeah.
Jim wants to know if you can shower, exercise, and fly in an airplane with an LVAD. We talked about the things you should probably not do is aggressively swing at the golf ball, which is what Garen did.
Yeah.
And get on rooftops and keep hammering. But can you do regular people things?
Yeah. So I usually tell all the patients, the whole reason we're doing this is to kind of live life normally. So I want you out there experiencing all that you can. You can fly, you can drive, you can shower. We discourage jumping in the lake because that's bad for the pump and the electronics. So swimming is kind of out the window. That's
then how do you shower with it?
One thing. Gary can probably tell you more about it, but essentially there's a special bag that your stuff goes in to keep it dry, and then you change your dressings afterwards, things like this. So it's a little bit more of a production than just, you're probably not going to get out of bed 3 minutes before you're supposed to be at work and make it on time, but yeah, you can shower with a VAD.
A really good question just came in from Megan. Megan wants to know how the new heart that you have has changed your outlook on life. Garen?
The new heart is such a blessing, and the outlook on life is I'm just trying to take as much in as possible and never letting a minute live down. I'm living to the fullest and preparing, spending as much time with my family and friends as possible, and, building for, kind of the end in mind. I know that life's here to live, and I'm living it, and giving back to the community and giving back to, I can. So it's about, you receive the gift of life, right? So if you're blessed, to be a blessing, and that's, I think, changed a lot.
I have another question for Dr. Abik from Byron. Byron wants to know, how long on average does a heart transplant keep working? Is there?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and one we don't talk about a ton. The median survival after heart transplant is in the range of 13 to 14 years.
Okay.
But there are tons of people that are out there over 2 decades after their heart transplant, and just like the VAD needed to be plugged in all the time and get power to work, the transplant is kind of dependent on working on immunosuppression and all the meds that we have to take. And so your body always sees it as foreign, and that's why you don't get a transplant from a 20-year-old donor and then expect 50 years out of that transplant. It's a constant battle we're weighing.
We're looking at video that we have of a heart transplant that was performed inside here at the University of Kansas Health System. This is fascinating to see how this works. It's so interesting. I have a question actually that I want to ask both Garen and Dr. Abik about, because Garen, you told me that you think this started as a sinus infection that traveled to your heart. That's terrifying because a lot of people get sinus infections. So is this a thing that can happen when you have a sinus infection, Dr. Abicht?
I would tell you that Garen probably had unrecognized heart failure for a little while before he actually got sick enough. He had a lot of reserve. He was otherwise, like you said, healthy individual. So there's probably something brewing. I think that ultimately the infection helped tip him over into worsening heart failure, and that kind of, those events kind of get locked together then that, you know, oh, this caused my heart failure and whatnot. But yeah, it's not uncommon for people to present after some kind of antecedent illness, be it sinus infection. I had the flu. Some people had another procedure performed and just didn't recover from it very well afterwards, and it was because they were actually in unrecognized heart failure.
So it's not that a sinus infection causes heart failure, it's that you already have some sort of weakness there triggered by that?
Most of the time, it's kind of an indirect correlation instead of directly A led to B.
I want to ask Garen about his some of the other symptoms that you had, Garen. You talk about thinking you were going into the doctor's office for an ulcer, right? You were just having stomach issues and you were tired.
I was having stomach issues and I was tired. And I didn't know what was going on. Finally, by the time that I went to the hospital, I was literally on a roof and I was trying to get down. I was dizzy. And then I remember driving myself to the hospital and I was dizzy, got lost. And then so, so I probably waited too long. So
you think?
Those were the symptoms. It wasn't like, you know, you get kicked in the shin and you know, oh, I got kicked in the shin. You know, it was like, so I just turned 40. I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to recognize symptoms for heart failure, you know? And so now people ask me all the time, I'm like, dude, go get your heart checked out. Go get your heart checked out.
Right.
So, yeah.
You're an advocate for that. Dr. Abicht, is the feeling that you have something wrong with your stomach a sign of heart trouble?
It can be. So our gut actually takes an awful lot of our blood supply to feed that and do its job. And so when things get backed up because our pump or our heart is failing, a lot of people present with feelings of abdominal fullness or bloating or lack of appetite. And a lot of times in the end stages of heart failure, people actually start losing weight just because they stop eating because they're in such bad heart failure.
Got some more questions, and then I have a comment. Garen, you're going to like this. This is from Shamrock Roofer YouTube. Okay, they're on YouTube. So Shamrock Roofing is your company. So your teammates there, right? Your team loves and supports you, Garen. Glad to have you through this with you stronger than ever. You have a great team that's supporting you, family and friends and coworkers. Yes. That must feel good.
I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed for them. They're the ones that make all this happen. They really are.
Question for Dr. Abicht. Hold on, this is a good one. Anne wants to know, how long does an LVAD last? Because Garen had his for almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So the answer would be it can last indefinitely. Most folks have them in the range of time that Garen did. Between 1 and 3 years would be the vast majority of people out there. But we have people here at our center that have been supported 5 years. And there's people out that we've adopted here that have had over a decade. So you can definitely, like I said before, the pump will never itself wear out.
Jamie has a question. Dr. Abicht, how often do y'all see veins, vessels used from legs fail when triple bypass open heart is done? Is that normal? So different topic, but an interesting heart question.
Yeah, so, veins are not perfect conduits or substitutes for our native coronary arteries. And so they can fail at a rate of, most of them, 60 to 80% are open at somewhere between 6 and 8 years. So it's not an uncommon thing for vein grafts to go down in the long term.
I have a question from, this is good, Scott. Scott wants to know, I've heard people who receive transplants, this is for you, Garen, heard people who receive transplants sometimes find they come out of it liking foods they never liked or music they never enjoyed before, but there are things they find out their donor liked. Have you experienced anything like that?
It's funny. The answer is yes. I noticed myself,
Really?
liking more sweets and things like that. And so I am still waiting to hear from my donor's family, which is kind of waiting on me. I've got the letter. I get to write a letter after the year. The year's been up. I've got the letter, and I've got just so much feelings and that well up inside of me about meeting the family. So I'm just working on that.
I want to get to some final thoughts from our guests, but Garen, this kind of goes into, for your final thought, a question that one of our viewers, Claire, has. And I'm wondering if you want to say something to answer Claire. Claire wants to know if the donor's family is watching. Somehow they're watching this page from the University of Kansas Health System and they're watching this story. What would you want to say to the donor's family?
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. There's just so many words. Words can't explain it. I mean, I have dreams. I'll wake up to, meeting the donor's family with a stethoscope so they can listen to their child's heartbeat. So it's so much important to me to live a good life, to live, to make the world proud, to make them see that, hey, this didn't go for anything. This is something special. Like, donate life, please be a donor. There are people that don't make it on waiting for an organ. And so receiving that is so special. I'm excited for the day that I get to meet them.
They're going to feel that gratitude, and that's going to be such an emotional day. I was going to get to final thoughts from Dr. Abik too, but I'm getting more questions. This episode is resonating with our viewers. If you guys don't mind, I've got some more. Audrey wants to know, I had quintuple bypass in 2009. Now I'm having trouble with my legs after I had 2 veins taken from my legs. Can you explain why?
Not directly. I think that sometimes these issues in the long term can be unrelated to our heart surgery, and usually are not related ultimately to the veins that we used for those bypass grafts. So, it's always good to look into other things, including heart failure and whatnot. Make sure that your pump's still working good, and there's no other reason for it. But I would doubt that it's probably related necessarily to the veins that were used at the time of our operation.
Right. And then one last question. This is from Byron. Byron wants to know, what's more common, a heart transplant for men or women? Do you have statistics for that?
I think men still outnumber women, but it's the gap is closing all the time.
So when Garen was talking and talking about his message to the donor's family, I could see that affects you too, because something so sad has had to happen to one family to have something so incredibly joyful to happen for another. What's that feel like as the surgeon?
Yeah, I think we always walk this fine line between knowing kind of what happened on end A and knowing how much kind of the recipient will benefit from the transplant. And certainly Garen has always done everything that we've asked of him and he shows that by how great his recovery has been and how active he's been both with his VAD and with his transplant. And so, I think we're thankful for patients like Garen putting their trust in us to make good decisions and really kind of make the most of the gift that was given in the transplant.
Garen, what do you want to say to this doctor right next to me who you credit for saving your life 3 times? Not many people get to hang out with the guy who saved your life 3 times.
I love this guy. I love Dr. Abik, especially on Doctor's Day. Happy belated Doctor's Day, by the way. I bought him all shoes. Because when on the surgery, I didn't want their feet to be hurting or having to crack their ankles or nothing like that and miss.
You bought them shoes for the surgery?
He bought the whole team shoes. So there's
Are you kidding?
Yeah, there's a whole team of people that have shoes from Garen. He's been very good to, it takes a village to do all of this.
Yeah.
You know, I always tell folks I'm like the flash in the pan. The real people that make this work are our team of nurses and NPs that really follow these guys and keep them in line on a day-to-day basis. And so, he definitely bought the whole team shoes, and I can tell you firsthand that they all make use of that gift to this day. Yeah.
So how long is the surgery that you're standing on your feet and you need your comfy shoes for?
Yeah, he bought like nice shoes, so I don't wear those in the OR. But
nice shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, time out. I'm sorry, I'm fixated on the shoe. What kind of shoes did Garen buy your whole team? Like,
oh, it was very.
Dress
he asked.
shoes?
He actually let people put in requests. Mine was a surprise. So,
can you say what kind? You know, I'm going to keep asking you.
Garen,
The dress shoes.
They're dress shoes. Yeah, Cole Haan. Yeah, so. They're
Oh
nice.
my
They're comfy
gosh.
and stuff, and so we
Yeah.
wear them a lot around and do
Oh, that's
things like
so
this.
sweet.
But yeah, so it was great. It was a great surprise that he gave the team.
Wow, that's why I love working here and getting to see the patients and the doctors. And there's always this really special bond that has formed between the patients and the doctors, and that says a lot. Garen, great guy, and then the fact that you elicit such a emotional response in your patient and your team does that, that's really special.
Yeah, everybody gets tight. It's I tell them it's a funny little marriage that we all enter
Right.
into when we go down this road, and
Right.
we try to make it all work.
Garen, thank you so much for sharing your health journey with us. We are so glad that you were doing so well. And I'm wondering if Garen and you might get together to go mountain biking. He's a pretty active guy.
Yeah.
And now that he doesn't have the LVAD, he can do more things. And where I'm going with this is one of the cool things about the show is we get to learn about our doctors behind the scenes. So I want to tell you something about Dr. Abik. When he isn't performing heart surgery and saving lives, he's on his mountain bike and not just riding leisurely through scenery. He's like literally riding across mountains.
Yeah. Once in a while, yeah.
You're blushing, but it's true. I've seen the pictures. Okay, he sent us some pictures. The pictures make it look way less dramatic than it is. This is after you completed something called, is it the Leadville 100?
It is, yeah.
So it's a more than 100-mile mountain bike ride.
Mm-hmm.
And where are you mountain biking across?
The mountains outside of Leadville, Colorado. So Leadville's the highest incorporated town in the country. It sits at 10,000, a little over 10,000 feet. So it's between 10 and 12,000 and change the whole day long.
So you're just biking 110 miles across the mountains,
Yep.
elevation ranges, I did some research,
Yeah.
up to 13,000 feet. And there's one picture, I don't know if we're going to show it again, where you're like, oh, this is me and my family, and you're bleeding. Like blood is gushing down your knee. What happened? Did you fall?
Maybe.
It's your right
yeah,
knee.
it was, you know,
And your three kids
a
there.
long day.
Three kids,
yeah,
right?
4. There's one hiding in the background there. So
Oh,
there's,
4.
Yeah, there's 2 boys and 2 girls.
And you're a family of doctors. Your wife's also a doctor.
She is. Yep. Yep. She's an OB. So
does
she's
she,
busy. And
she like Wonder Woman too?
She
rides
is.
bikes across mountains and things of that nature?
She hasn't gotten really into biking, but you know, one of us has got to stay healthy, I guess.
The best part about this is what you got after you, well, how long did it take you to complete this 110-mile bike ride?
It wasn't that fast of a day. It was like an 11-hour day. So
Only 11 hours. I feel like that's a good time. What did you get for competing in under 11 hours?
yeah, the thing at that race is you get a fancy belt buckle to commemorate your day out there riding across the mountain. So,
And some Advil.
yeah.
So I won't be happy until I see you guys golfing together or mountain biking together.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you so much for being here. And yes, happy belated Doctor's Day. Garen,
you.
thank you. All month long, we've been asking our viewers to send doctors a message of thank you in honor of National Doctor's Day, which was yesterday. We've gotten so many great messages from our viewers. Here's one from Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice Marshall from Topeka, Kansas, and I want to wish you a happy Doctor's Day. I appreciate the care I've been given, and I am glad that Lori Barbosa suggested I go and get checked. I want to show appreciation for Dr. Yacoub, Dr. Al-Rajabi, Dr. Al-Kaspools, Dr. Vera Machinini for helping me through my cancer challenge, and Dr. Andra for being a great primary care doctor. Have a great day.
Thank you, Alice. And I was just reading more messages of thanks on Facebook. They're just rolling in. People are so thankful and want to share their thanks with our doctors. And we want to make sure all of you have all the information that you need to keep your hearts healthy. You know the Skittles phrase, taste the rainbow? That's true for heart health, but it has nothing to do with candy. Doctors say you should actually eat as many different colors of fresh fruit and fresh vegetables every single day. Here's cardiologist Dr. Shannon Hoos-Thompson.
If you can do that, great, but you start with 1 or 2 and see if you can build it up. So the answer is make sure you've got something in the rainbow and everything's not brown. It would be a good place to start. I would say, that somebody who comes in and tells me that, yeah, I eat the colors of the rainbow every day, I'm like, well, you probably don't need me. So the answer is yeah, that's a great thing to do for yourself. But you don't have to, even if you're getting that 1 or 2 colors, great, and if you can make it 3 or 4, go for it. So again, do step by step, but yeah, I think that's a great tip.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Next week on All Things Heart, yes, women, we can have it all, including menopause.
It really was something that made me think more about my heart health.
Hormone replacement therapy and the heart. How a mother of 2 with a family history of heart disease is already planning ahead. That's next Thursday morning at 10. We'll see you then. Bring your questions.